Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we are going on a really fascinating investigative journey together. We're going to learn exactly how to uncover the truth that's hidden out there in a massive sea of numbers. Have you ever actually wondered how huge organizations figure out the most popular products, or track subtle changes in prices, or even measure something as vast as the spread of literacy across an entire country? Well, spoiler alert, they don't just guess. They use a highly structured, step-by-step framework to find those answers. So let's just dive right into this and explore the 9 stages of statistical inquiry. Think of this as our official roadmap for solving a real-world data mystery. Here is our agenda for today. First, decoding statistical inquiry. Second, strategizing your data investigation. Third, sourcing and collection techniques. Fourth, executing and processing data. Fifth, organizing and interpreting data. And finally, number 6, presenting the final report. Section 1. Decoding statistical inquiry. Okay, before we can solve absolutely anything, we really need to know what we're actually dealing with here. Statistical inquiry isn't just about staring blankly at spreadsheets. It is a fully systematic process. It's an organized, deliberate method of collecting and analyzing data about a very specific group of people or objects, using precise statistical techniques. This is literally the tool we use to measure real-world phenomena. Whether you want to find out if cloth production has gone up or map out national literacy rates, this is how you do it. Now, you can't have a great investigation without a top-notch team, right? So let's introduce the cast of characters you need for a data inquiry. First up, we have the investigator. This is the architect of the whole project, the person who actually conducts the inquiry and designs the master plan. Next, we have the enumerator. These are basically your boots on the ground, the people who are actively helping the investigator collect the information out in the field. And finally, the respondents. These are the individuals actually providing the answers. They're the people from whom the statistical information is gathered. Section 2. Strategizing your data investigation. With our team assembled, it's time to lay out our strategy before we ever step foot in the field. And that brings us to stage 1, the planning of statistical inquiry. This stage is all about preliminary preparation, and honestly, it is absolutely vital. If you fail to clearly set out your purpose right here, it's just going to lead to confusion, misunderstanding, and a massive waste of resources down the line. First, you have to determine your objective. What exactly do you want to know? Second, you define your scope. Are you looking at a single neighborhood or an entire continent? And what's your timeline? Because if you take too long, your data just becomes outdated. Third, you must specify the population or statistical unit. Basically, who exactly are you investigating? Let's look at an example straight from our source material to really ground this concept. Let's call it the bathing soap mystery. Imagine our objective is to find out which brand of bathing soap is the absolute most popular. At the planning stage, defining our target group is crucial. Are we surveying high-income, middle-class, or low-income buyers? Because, as you might guess, a billionaire and a broke college student probably aren't buying the exact same brand of soap. If we don't define this variable right up front, our final data is going to be a tangled mess. Section 3. Sourcing and collection techniques. So now that we have a rock-solid plan, we transition into deciding exactly where and how we're going to gather our clues. This brings us to stages 2 and 3. Stage 2 requires us to choose our sources. Basically, are we going out into the world to find fresh clues ourselves, or are we digging through existing records? And once we figure that out, stage 3 is about choosing the actual technique. How wide of a net do we actually need to cast? Let's look a little closer at stage 2, which is primary versus secondary data. Primary data is firsthand. It is completely original in character, collected directly by the investigator from the source of origin for your specific predetermined objective. Now, it's highly accurate for your exact needs, but it involves massive expenses in terms of money, time, and energy. Secondary data, on the other hand, is secondhand. It's obtained from existing published or unpublished records. Think of things like government census reports. It's way cheaper and faster to get, but here's the catch. Because it was collected by someone else for a totally different purpose, you almost always have to carefully adjust it to suit your specific objective. If you do decide to go the primary data route, you have a whole bunch of methods at your disposal. You could use direct personal investigation, which is meeting respondents face-to-face. But what if you need to look into sensitive habits where a respondent might hide the truth? Then you try indirect oral investigation, like asking their neighbors or witnesses. Need regular updates across a massive area? You can use local agents or correspondents. What about educated respondents who are spread out all over the map? Try mailed questionnaires. And for truly massive tasks like a national population census, you can use enumerator schedules where trained enumerators take standardized questionnaires directly to the respondents to fill out. Moving right along to stage 3, the techniques of collection. Here, you're choosing between a census and a sample. In a census inquiry, you study every single unit connected with the inquiry. It is direct, it's reliable, but man, is it costly. Alternatively, the sampling method studies only selected representative units. Returning to our soap example for a second, surveying a well-chosen sample of buyers is incredibly economical and time-saving compared to, knocking on the door of literally every single person in the country. But you have to be careful because it does carry the risk of biased selection if you do it wrong. Section 4. Executing and processing data. This is the action phase. Welcome to Stage 4, the execution and collection of data. The strategy is set, the methods are chosen, and we are finally out in the field. This is the very first practical step where theory meets reality. Because data is the raw material upon which statisticians work, it is absolutely paramount that the execution ensures the data you collect is accurate, reliable, representative, and completely unbiased. Once that grueling fieldwork is done, the scene shifts back to headquarters for Stage 5, the processing of data. So what does processing actually mean in this context? Well, raw data is essentially unorganized material. It's just a shapeless, confusing mess. During Stage 5, all this data must be meticulously checked for errors, edited, coded into a uniform system, and finally transferred to cards, tapes, or computers. It's really about transforming a chaotic pile of survey sheets into a streamlined system that we can actually work with. Section 5, Organizing and Interpreting Data. We have entered the analytical phase, where the messy, raw data finally starts to reveal its hidden secrets. In Stage 6, we organize the data through classification and tabulation. Raw figures are unwieldy and frankly almost impossible to interpret on their own. We have to arrange them into tables and graphs so their significant features actually stand out. Then, we move to Stage 7, Analysis and Interpretation. This is where we look at aggregates and percentages to draw real inferences and understand exactly what our data is trying to tell us. Let's bring Stage 6 to life. Imagine we've taken those raw, chaotic surveys from our bathing soap mystery and tabulated them by income group against the specific brands. Instantly, those unorganized numbers have shape. You don't need a math degree to see the trends forming here. High-income buyers are heavily favoring brand A, while low-income buyers are overwhelmingly choosing brand C. Classification literally makes the invisible visible. Moving into Stage 7, let's see how this builds into interpretation. By analyzing the overall data in terms of aggregates and percentages, we can draw vital inferences. Looking at the total market share, we can clearly identify which brand completely dominates the overall market, brand C. And if we look back at the categories we just classified, we can explain exactly why that is, based on the specific purchasing habits of those different income groups. This interpretation proves our total comprehension of the entire survey. Section 6, Presenting the Final Report. It's time to reveal the truth to the world. We've collected, processed, organized, and interpreted. Stages 8 and 9 are where all of your hard work finally pays off. In Stage 8, you draft the report. Now, this isn't just a data dump. A proper statistical report must contain the actual findings of the survey, your clear conclusions, and most importantly, practical suggestions based on those findings. Once it's meticulously drafted, Stage 9 is the actual physical presentation of that report to your audience. And there is a brilliant quote directly from our source material that tells you exactly how Stage 9 should be handled. It says, "Presentation with confidence and smile is the hallmark of a good presentation." You really have to use your skills effectively here. Your presentation should be methodical, neat, precise, and clear, because all the great data in the world won't matter one bit if you can't communicate it. Delivering your findings with genuine confidence brings the whole investigation home. And there you have it. We've decoded the process, from that initial spark of planning all the way to a confident final presentation. You've seen exactly how investigators source their clues, process raw information, and turn messy numbers into clear, undeniable truths. So the question I want to leave you with today is this. Now that you have this rigorous 9-stage statistical toolkit at your disposal, what real-world mystery are you going to investigate next? Thanks so much for learning with us today on this explainer, and I will see you next time.